here?
My name is Becky Curran, and I'm a motivational speaker and diversity and inclusion consultant. I try to protect the next generation of people like me and set an example so they don't have to face as many obstacles as I did to get to where I am today.
What kind of obstacles have you faced, and what is your challenge, greatest challenge been?
As a little person, I'm only 30,000, one of I'm sorry. As a little person, I'm only one of 30,000 people currently living in the United States who have dwarfism. And because there are only 30,000 little people living in the United States, most people get their perceptions of dwarfism from the media. What you see on TV or in movies is how we are perceived. People assume that we're exactly like those fictional characters, or they could be real characters, but they may not have similar values to people like myself.
And you fight that.
I continue to fight the stigmas because I'm not willing to admit that I'm like a lot of the people that you see in the media. I'm a human being above all, and I want everyone like me to be seen as a human being. I don't think it's fair that our perceptions are based on what we see in the media. Even if it's positive perception, it still may not be exactly who we are as people.
What are some of the things that you like to surprise people with? Because I know you've told me, and it's magnificent.
I grew up participating in sports, and a lot of people assume that people who have physical differences may not be active in the athletic community. I grew up participating in swimming, soccer, skiing, sailing, and I was doing all of this among my average height peers. There is an organization called the Dwarf Athletic Association, and they do have games at little people conventions throughout the years. They even do something called the World Dwarf Games that's every 4 years where little people compete. But I've never been involved in any of that. I've only been involved in competing among my average height peers, and I just had to figure out how to play alongside them, and that's how it is in real life. I've had to adapt to the community around me, and I always tell people I rather people let me adapt to them and be okay with my difference. If I always get asked if I were to be born again, would I want to be a little person? And I always say absolutely, but I'd love to have the outside world change the way they react to my difference. I don't want people to feel bad for me. I just want them to give me a chance. And by doing that, I want to set that example because I assume assumptions aren't always great, but in this assumption, I'm assuming that the people behind me want to have that same chance.
Your confidence and about who you are is so fabulous. I mean, it was such a pleasure when I met you. And how do you want to share that with the folks here? Your confidence, your motivational speaking. How do you want to relay that to the young people here now?
Most of my career has been spent working behind the scenes in the entertainment industry, and that has proven to be very challenging. When I first was breaking into the entertainment industry, I went on 100 interviews. 100 times I went into an interview that I was qualified for because I wouldn't have been called in if they didn't like my resume. And the moment I walked in the door, I was judged. People were afraid to talk to me because of the fear people have of little people, which makes no sense at all. I want that to go away. I want that to never happen again. What I really enjoy about the conversations that happen here at the USBLN conference are that we should just have a conversation when we're starting the interview. Let's just talk about how much we do have in common. As we continue to talk, we'll realize that we have more in common than different. And then we can dive into the interview questions, because I really feel that candidates should be equally vetted no matter who the person is. They need to be able to answer the questions, but set the tone, get rid of the elephant in the room before going into the interview questions. And it's unfortunate because when I go into a room, or when someone likes me goes into a room, we have to give permission to the person on the other side to just be open and accept us before we can build a relationship. And it's unfortunate that we have to get to that point. We shouldn't have to explain or apologize for people for us throwing them off. I've really had people who've told me that they have a fear of little people. And
Which is almost
we're
an oxymoron.
human. I'm not going to jump out at you. And that's the problem with today's media. There are people who still do that. Unfortunately, there are little people who agree to things like dwarf tossing, which is very upsetting. And they don't understand that that affects how our entire community is perceived. And it trickles down to the fact that 80% of little people are born to average height parents. My parents are average height. They had never met a little person before meeting me in the delivery room.
And you gotta tell us how tall your father is.
My dad's 6'4". He always joked I have an average height older sister. He said to my mom he wanted 2 kids. My mom wanted 1, so they settled at 1.5. They wanted me to have a sense of humor in order to understand and deal with people's reactions. And fortunately, that has built me the strength and confidence to put up with how people react to my difference. I get catcalled every single day in New York City, especially since there are millions of people in that city. And I learn to ignore it, because if I don't ignore it, then people are going to continue to engage in conversation, and it could lead to something where I can't protect myself. And I feel that if you do ignore people who are being insulting, they tend to back off because they know you don't want to hear it at that point. And I advise anyone with any type of disability to continue on with confidence, steer clear of anything that may seem off, and protect yourself by being the best you can be and proving to people that you are the best.
Well, I love the fact that you said, yeah, my dad's 6'4". That was great.